Hello and welcome to the Engerati studio. I'm Rob Martin and I'm joined here by Jon Slowe, Director at Delta EE. Jon, welcome.
Thank you.
So let's talk about flexibility, one of the talk of the town at the moment. You've identified two different types of flexibility. Can you define those for me and talk to me about how they're different?
Sure. So the two types are implicit and explicit flexibility. We'll start with explicit, as that's probably the one most people are more familiar with. Explicit flexibility is when you can monetize a customer's flexibility directly. So the best example of that would be an aggregator working with an industrial customer. They ask the industrial customer to reduce their demand at a particular time, and then the aggregator sells that to the balancing market, earns money from it, and shares that money with the industrial customer. So that's explicit flexibility, where there's a clear monetization of the flexibility, and the revenue is then shared or the benefit shared with the customer in some way. Implicit flexibility, on the other hand, is where the price signal will trickle down to the end customer. So that is starting to happen more and more, and will happen more and more in the future, through time of use pricing, through demand charges, through end users having more access to the energy market. And implicit flexibility will see the end customer shape their demand, fine-tune their demand according to those price signals.
So how is this marketplace for flexibility emerging?
Well, as you say, it's quite a hot topic, but it's quite a young market in many ways. So flexibility has existed for a long, long time, but it's mainly been power plants ramping up and down, or very large customers like steelworks adjusting their demand. It then, in the US, started to develop through the response to brownouts or the threat of brownouts, but it was done in quite a crude way, where an aggregator might call up a hotel, ask them to reduce their demand. The hotel would send some poor guy up to the second, third, fourth floors to switch off the ice machines. It's now moving in a much more smarter, more automated way. So explicit demand response is growing quite quickly with business customers. UK is one of the markets that are ahead. France is quite active. There are many aggregators entering that market. That explicit demand response is moving into the B2C market in some areas, and it's moving from the balancing market to the energy market. But those two trends are only just starting today.
And how will those trends be accelerated? What's on the horizon that's going to really bring this from something that's emerging to being mainstream?
There are a few factors. One factor is how quickly the electricity markets open up to demand-side flexibility, and we see that trend gathering pace across Europe through regulatory and policy and market reform. Secondly, the cost of flexibility will come down as you have more automation, more intelligence, more control. And thirdly, and probably most importantly, is creating business models with really compelling customer propositions. So this isn't something that is done to customers, but it's something that actually customers will want and respond to.
So picking up on your point about both business models and customers, as various actors in flexibility vie for position, there's inevitably going to be winners and losers, possibly more losers than winners. So what are the winners going to be doing differently or better than the rest?
Well, you're right. The market's already, for a small market, it's surprisingly crowded. There are a lot of aggregators, a lot of others moving into the market. So in any market, you need a good strategy. In the flexibility market, you need to be very nimble, very quick on your feet, and respond quickly to the changing market. So speed and nimbleness will be important. Fundamentally, we think there are three key things that the winners will do. They'll know where the opportunities are and where the opportunities are moving to, how those opportunities are changing, so they'll focus on the right opportunities. They'll have very clear customer propositions, so they'll be very customer-centric, and they'll have a clear USP to their proposition. And they'll have the right partnership with the right channel to reach the customer. So no one company will own the whole value chain. Partnerships will be necessary.
And is there a really good example of a partnership that's in place at the moment that you think others can learn from, or that it's just generally a good example for people to know about?
Yeah, I think it's hard to pull out one really good example because there's quite a number that we track and analyse, but maybe just to bring one to life. Restore is an aggregator. They've been working in the way I described with larger B2B customers, but they're now tapping into the residential market through working with an equipment manufacturer, a Dutch-Belgian company that manufactures hot water storage tanks, to be able to extract flexibility from when the hot water storage tank when the electric heating is running in the hot water storage tank. So that's an interesting example between an aggregator and a product manufacturer.
Okay. It's always good to end on a real life example. Jon, thank you very much for your time. Thanks for joining us in the studio.
Thank you.
And remember, there are more videos and interviews available on the Engerati YouTube channel.